In 2021, the federal government of Nigeria introduced a sugar-sweetened beverage tax. It's embedded in the Finance Act of 2021, which levies a 10 naira tax on each liter of all non-alcoholic and sugar-sweetened carbonated drinks. Some have raised concerns about the negative impact it would have on the sector, while some applauding it, saying it will reduce the risk of diabetes and all of that. But let's talk to Taiwo Oyedelin, our fiscal policy partner and Africa tax leader, PwC Nigeria. Join us via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Ladi. It's a pleasure to be on your program.
Good morning. So we're getting, different reactions, about this sugar tax, these companies. We've seen the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria talk about how this is going to bring down, that industry to its knees. How are you seeing this?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to take a step back, the federal government has imposed excise duties on a number of products, particularly tobacco, alcohol, and spirit, for a number of years. Then last year, government decided that they need to impose excise on non-alcoholic beverages. So there was a lot of back and forth with the industry players trying to provide the data to show that it wasn't the right time to do it. Maybe government shouldn't even be thinking about that at all. If you look at the report by the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, that was released a couple of days ago, it shows now that the manufacturing sector is in decline with a GDP of minus 1.91%. And in fact, the food, beverage, and tobacco subsector of the manufacturing industry is even in a bigger decline of about almost minus 4%. So what we have seen is, since government introduced the 10 naira per liter, we have seen a decline in that subsector because they're having to deal with a myriad of issues anyways. Man also said that this year alone, the amount they're spending on diesel alone has increased by about 400%. So this new excise of 10% kicked in just a few months ago. And to the surprise of many of us, including especially, as you say, the industry players, government is then proposing a further increase to the increases that they have already announced, because in the 2022 Fiscal Policy Measures and Tariffs Amendments Directive issued by the government, they indicated the rate for 2022, 2023, and 2024 for non-alcoholic beverages, tobacco, and alcohol. So all of us thought that the right thing to do was to allow that roadmap to play out rather than having to interrupt it midway and increase the rate, especially when the economic circumstances are not getting better, but rather deteriorating.
And obviously, we know the federal government now, struggling with raising revenue. At this time, we see that the central bank governor did say the receipts from oil right now is zero. So obviously, there has to be some, balancing act here. Government trying to raise revenue, but also you don't want to tax, businesses out of business. How do we do this? How do we go about this?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ladi. So on one hand, I think every single person, including business owners that are being targeted for these taxes, agree that government needs more revenue. There's no doubt about that. But the discussion is, what is the best approach to be able to do that? By the way, this sector that is bearing the brunt of excise duties on their products already pay far more than the average for other sectors. Tobacco, for example, pays almost 5 times the average contribution of other sectors to taxation in Nigeria. So they're already bearing a high burden. And in fact, the excise duty on tobacco was increased by 95% between last year and this year. So you can't do all the increases in 1 year. And the amount that government is seeking to raise, all things being equal, that is, if demand does not, shrink further, it's less than 90 billion naira. When we're looking at the account of NAPIMS, which is just a subsidiary of NNPC, that's the equivalent of what they spent on public relations last year. So where government can make money from is not overtaxing the companies that are trying to create employment, that are trying to help us revive the economy, especially the ones that are labor intensive, such as food, beverage, and tobacco sector. What government needs to focus on is, first, how do you reduce inefficiency? How do you harmonize the tax system? As we speak now, even based on the 2023 budget, about 63 MDAs have been asked to go and collect revenues. I don't know of any country where you do that. What happens with that approach is these guys will then forget sometimes their primary mandate and keep imposing all manners of charges and levies on businesses, making it difficult for them to do business. Because they are not trained and equipped and skilled to collect taxes, you see a lot of leakages. Many of them use consultants with ridiculous amounts of commissions. What you need to do is harmonize all of that process and then use data and intelligence to make sure that everybody pays what you currently have in the law. Otherwise, the more taxes you impose, the more those who are trying to do the right thing and pay their taxes become less competitive because they're operating in the same market that others are operating in and not fully tax compliant.
And yesterday, we did get that interesting outcome from the Federal Executive Council meeting. We did hear that there was some kind of blame trade, about what Nigerians are going through, right now between the state and the federal government. And I'm wondering how can they synergize, their activities to make it better for the average Nigerian?
Yeah, that's one thing that we don't do well in Nigeria, and it cuts across. I'm not blaming only government, but I think it's worse in government because of the impact. It's not using data for making decisions, right? So you want to fight poverty, and I don't think it's a blame game between federal and subnational. You have to do it together. When the life of Nigerians are difficult, or they don't see prosperity or hope, they don't care whether it's local government or state or federal government. They just know that government is not working for them. So there has to be a handshake. You know what you need to do to lift people out of poverty, provide healthcare, provide education, living standards, some of them as basic as safe drinking water, right? Employment and address insecurity. So this sector we are talking about now is labor intensive. When you have unemployment that is contributing to poverty, it's not the time to then impose taxes on the people who are creating those jobs in millions. And if you also use data for decision making, you would also see that when government increased the excise duties on these industries, because their capacity went down as well as their volume, their VAT contribution reduced. Their company's income tax reduced because profits went down. Overall, government was actually making less than they were intending to make overall. So using data for decision is going to help us in more ways than one, whether it is fighting extreme poverty, whether it's creating employment, whether it's addressing tax policies. We just have to respect data and use that for decision making at all times.
Going forward now, do you see, more taxes coming?
Sadly, yes. And I will really, really strongly advise government that this is not the right time to introduce and impose new taxes or increase the rate of existing ones. What we're seeing around the world are countries trying to either freeze the rate or even reduce them. Because on one hand, you have an economy where we have a lot of challenges. You have rising inflation. So if you increase VAT, you impose excise duty, those ones have impact on inflation, even escalating it further. So government should then rather focus on how can you generate revenue without increasing tax rates and without imposing new ones. And I'm confident that if government can just harmonize tax rates, harmonize tax collection agencies to be only one agency collecting taxes, use data and intelligence to find out who is not paying taxes, would significantly move the needle on revenue generation without creating problems for businesses that need all the help that they can get, especially at this time.
Even protecting households and the poor also. But thank you so much, Mr. Taiwo. You're the fiscal policy partner and Africa tax leader, PwC Nigeria. It was great having your perspective this morning.
Thank you very much, Ladi.
Thank you.